together, where we're enhancing the meaning and purpose in life for everybody involved. There's learning for everyone. I mean, that's what creates the richness in a community. And we do it around building better health, which is, I will end with my opening line, it's the most critical public health issue of this century. And we've got to get our arms around it, and we've got to turn the ship around. And this is a great approach that we believe will help us get there. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I open up for any questions.
Any questions of Pam? For those of you that would like a brochure, I think there are a few in the back of the room. This is something that the Community Healthcare Advisory, the name has been changed from to Community Healthcare Advisory from a community, I can't even remember the old name, Mission and Community Outreach. And this is something that we're going to ask our board for some funds to help support. And we thought it was just, the public health aspect of this was just too phenomenal, too great to let it go by.
And we really appreciate that. We're putting funds in as well to make it happen. We really appreciate the partnership with you and working. It sends a strong message to our community that we're all in this together. Where we live, work, play, pray, all has an impact on our health. And if we can get schools there, if we can get senior centers there, we're getting the faith community, that we're all looking at this about how that adds up. So we really appreciate the opportunity. And as well as people in the audience who are watching, we really welcome any kind of participation that want to come and be part of this, help us design what that should look like, and move forward.
And we'll repeat the date.
The date is June 15th, so we have plenty of time. It's from 9 till 2. It'll be a free event. We're hosting it together. It will be at the Sheraton Carlsbad, where we're going to host this up here. Lunch will be provided, and we really want to get our community here, do this kickoff, and really start thinking and planning how we can move forward with this direction. Yes?
The statistics at the very beginning, you said 3 behaviors, 4 diseases. I got heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. What was the 4th?
Respiratory.
Okay.
You know, I would tell you too, we have a lot of those statistics coming live through our public health office. And if you would like any of that run by your community, we can run it by, you know, we track that, we have those statistics. So we could say, what I know is the county's 3-4-57. We could say, we could run it for Oceanside, Vista, these areas, so that you can really look, because I think it becomes even more relevant then, because often we think these problems aren't, they're somewhere else.
You said that, okay, so you've got 3, 4, 50, 50% of the deaths?
Yes, 50% of the deaths are related to those 4. And I would like to add one more thing. I appreciate your question. Smoking is a good example. When we think about sometimes when you're trying to get someone to quit smoking, and they'll say, well, I know it'll kill me, but I just want to enjoy life until then. Dying from smoking isn't a fast death. It's a long, miserable death that is expensive, and quality of life is terrible, as are issues that relate to obesity and inactivity. When you think about diabetes, when you think about these things, they become debilitating. You're not able to participate in life. It's a stress on not only yourself, your family, and certainly our healthcare system. So I think smoking is a good example where we look, you know, when you think about at the end of the war, we were giving GIs cigarettes free as a thank you, job well done. You could smoke anywhere. It was socially acceptable to smoke. It was sexy to smoke. And it was cheap. And as we learned about the health hazards of smoking, we started making changes in that. And we went to, well, you can only smoke in the back of it. We'd be smoking in this meeting probably. Then we said, oh, you can only smoke in part of it. You can smoke in the back of the place, half the restaurant. We started adding some tax and making it expensive. Fully learned the deadliness of secondhand smoke, to where we really said, wait a minute, where we are today, and California has led the way in this, you know, that we understand that now. You can still choose to smoke, but we have done a lot of educating. It's harder to smoke than it is to not smoke. You have to go somewhere else to smoke. It's expensive to smoke. It really isn't socially acceptable anymore. It's certainly not something we view as sexy out there. And so while we honor choice, we want to have all those things. We want to just make it as easy as it can be to make healthy choices. And right now, it's easier to walk in and buy a sugary drink than a bag of chips than it is to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. And those are the kinds of things I think we have to look at. Kids need to understand. Think of the joy of learning to garden and grow your own things and get rid of sugary drinks. So I think there's that richness that we know of older adults, and if we can connect that with kids, everybody will benefit.
Any other questions? Pam, I'm very happy you came today. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
It was well received by the healthcare, community healthcare group, and I think the board appreciates this as well as the administration.
Great. Thank you, and I look forward to partnering with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, we'll move on. Report from the Chief Executive Officer.
Good afternoon. As usual, I'm just going to cover a few basic points, give you an update on operational and financial performance for January, update you on the refinancing of our debt, which is about to be completed, talk a little bit about our service expansion initiatives, give you a brief update on where we are on our multiple construction projects, and invite you to participate with us for the North County March for Babies, April 14th. In January, our net from operations was $1.3 million, surpassing our goal of $572,000 and putting us ahead of goal year to date by a little over $2.7 million on the operating line. This result represents a 90% favorable variance to plan year to date. Again, that's against plan or what we sometimes call budget. Once again, cost control was the dominant feature to our success, with a 6.6% underrun to plan on expenses compared to only a 3.8% underrun on revenue. And you've seen these numbers be fairly consistent over the last year or so. The only significant overrun to plan on expenses was registry costs, and that was related to our extraordinarily high volumes in January. However, we've added a nurse recruiter and have developed a robust hiring campaign, and this Monday we hired approximately 40 employees, virtually all of whom were clinical, either RNs, ACTs, or technicians. In fact, in the past year, from January to January, we've added a total of 122 full-time equivalent positions. And when you think about it, that's a pretty significant increase in our complement. The bottom line excess of revenue over expenses was $1.8 million for the month, leaving us at plus a little over $3 million to plan for the year so far. That's not $3 million to the good. That's $3 million above our planned performance at this time. So we're 66% ahead of our plan on the EROE line. Other operating highlights include our highest average daily census since the beginning of my administration at 204, an average of 48 hospital admissions per day, and an increase of 5.5% in deliveries over the prior year. So we're expanding in multiple business lines at the same time. It's important to take a look at what happened to surgeries during the month because we had an increase of 50 inpatient cases, and as you remember, our strategy in purchasing an interest in the North Coast Surgery Center was to move some of our outpatient surgeries over to the surgery center and repatriate those cases as inpatient cases here, and that's exactly what's happened because we've increased in the month by 50 inpatient cases and at the same time decreased by 51 cases in the outpatient category. So again, that was exactly the plan that we had. It's working well because we're not spending the same amount of money to do cases here. It's a lower cost, obviously, in the surgery center, and we're reaping the profits along with the doctors. And just to refresh your recollection, there's about 41% ownership in the surgery center of the docs, about 31% ownership by the hospital, and the target is to reach 49% ownership by the docs. Our gross patient revenue hit $106.8 million, That's the highest number ever recorded in the history of Tri-City Medical Center, eclipsing December's 105.1 number, which was the previous all-time high. We're also up 9.3% in patient days over this period last year, and that's because our acuity was 11.5% higher than the previous 6-month average. I'm going to move now to refinancing of our debt, and we went over this last month. You approved, you gave me broad authority actually to refinance the debt, which I greatly appreciate. That's allowed us to move very quickly. We are moving quickly to exit our financing facilities from Capital Source Bank. And through several meetings that we've had since the last time we met together with the Bank of the West, which is now our primary banking relationship, and BBVA Compass Bank, we expect to close our refinancing on or about March 9th, so just a couple of weeks away, at the interest rate that is within the targets that we displayed with you. And what that means is that our aggregate interest rate at the beginning of the facilities should be in the range of an aggregate of 1.5%. The new borrowing not only liquidates the Capital Source debt, but will provide ample capital to close escrow on the Wellness Center, which will happen no later than next January. We're efforting to achieve an earlier close, but so far we've not been able to arrange that. I'm told the Bank of the West has already cleared its credit committee on our financing request, and the Compass facility goes to its credit committee next week, and we're expecting approval, of course. I'm going to move now to service expansion. In working with Intuitive Surgical, the makers of our Da Vinci, 5th generation Da Vinci surgical complex, we have added an additional 6 gynecology surgeons who are currently in our credentialing process. Eventually, we expect them to bring an additional approximately 50 robotic surgeries per month, which would be an additional volume of about 8% increase on our surgical volume in its entirety. And just to update you, the last numbers that I saw were that we've done about 64 Da Vinci surgeries since we fired up the surgical suite at the end of August. So once we ramp up these new gynecological specialists, we should be able to step forward very quickly and really get maximum benefit out of that surgical suite. Both Drs. Aline and Moazes, as you've heard, traveled to the Texas Back Institute in Plano, Texas. That's actually where they were, validating the technology for the Mazor, and have expressed very significant validation of it and requested that we get it here immediately. And so, not to disappoint our surgeons, the equipment actually arrived on Tuesday and is being unpacked today, as Donald and Jeremy told you earlier. We also have a new venture that we're launching in our surgical suite, which is being led by Adam Ferrer. He's the head of our surgery department, general surgery, and this was his request that we expand into single incision laparoscopic surgery. That's recently been approved as a new surgical procedure. And what it means essentially is that instead of having several very small incisions, as you're familiar with in laparoscopic surgery, here we have only a single incision, and that incision will be made in the belly button so that as it's closed back up, it's essentially invisible and leaves no visible scarring. That's a technology that is not actually being used in any community hospital in California yet, and I believe we will be the first to be able to use that procedure. So then I added just a couple of slides on the Mazor, and you've seen these, so I'll skip through those and move on to our construction update. The medical office building, which I know as you drive by, it looks like nothing is happening, actually is bustling and is on schedule for completion no later than August of this year. We're hoping, of course, sooner. Significant activity will appear next week as the casting slabs will be poured. Moving to the site of that construction site, to the bank building, demolition permits are now pending in the city of Oceanside for approval, and we're expecting that approval will be issued in the mid-March timeframe, allowing for immediate demolition of the bank building, which then will be turned into a parking lot with 98 parking spaces and a nice stairway coming up onto the main area of our property, and that will remediate some of the parking congestion that we have now. We're also, at the same time, preparing to move forward on our raised parking structure, and the city has agreed on a configuration which permits us to build approximately 1,200 luxury-style parking stalls. And why I'm excited about that is, number one, we're going to need the parking because we're, of course, leaving the existing complex in place as we move forward to build the new structure. But with the size of the parking structure that we need and the height restrictions we have because of the helipad, we were looking at perhaps only being able to build 900 to 920 parking spaces, luxury-style parking spaces in a structure. And now that the city of Oceanside has agreed to allow us to literally build the parking structure on our lot line, which is a rare variation, I think we'll be able to complete the structure that we had originally envisioned and had reported to you earlier, which will be approximately 1,200 stalls. We will need to do an environmental impact report, and we're preparing to bring that forward for the board's review for funding in the near future. And we're not going to begin the main construction, that is on the parking structure, until we recapture the parking around the medical office building. So it won't have to be completely finished with tenant improvements inside, but we need to recapture that parking so that we don't further disrupt our parking capacity around the hospital. I'm going to move now to 1 North. If any of you have had the opportunity to review that area, we've put in new flooring, painted, and we have now completed 6 rooms in that complex. We've started construction on 2 more rooms, making a total of 8. Our OSHPD permit only was limited to allowing us to only complete 10 room renovations. So we're now making application to OSHPD to complete the project, and that's in concert with your funding approval that you issued either last month or the month before. Moving to the telemetry unit, which I know is an issue that some of you have asked us to move forward on. We're now reviewing a detailed color board for approval to ensure symmetry of the development of all of those 60 rooms, all of which will be renovated as well. And as you know, yesterday or the day before, we completed the courtyard fountain in the what I call the atrium area as you enter the hospital, and dedicated the statue to the medical staff. Most of the board was there to participate in that process, and we appreciate the dedication, and obviously we appreciate the medical staff's 50 years of outstanding service to our community. So, finally, our March for Babies. As we've previously announced, we'll conduct our walk at the Oceanside Pier on April 14th. Everyone is invited to come. We'd like to see as many board members and as many administration representatives as possible. This year we've committed to raising $70,000 from our employees for the March of Dimes, and believe we have a very eager and ready employee base, and they have in the past enjoyed participating in helping us to reduce prematurity and the often disabling effects of premature birth. So I want finally to acknowledge and celebrate Jeremy Ramo. Where's Jeremy? Jeremy's still here. So Jeremy, our service line director for orthopedics, who just made a presentation to you recently, as you may or may not know, has just had a baby girl named Rose here at Tri-City, and now knows the joys and tribulations of childbirth, which he shared with us recently. And his wife Emily, a NICU nurse, baby Rose, and Jeremy are doing fine, although I have some reservations about Jeremy. That's the end. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Any questions at all? Okay, we'll move on. Report from the auxiliary, Hope Risley. She's our auxiliary representative today.
My name is Hope Risley. I'm the first vice president of the auxiliary, and Paul, our president, is off doing auxiliary business this week, so he asked me to fill you in. We're always very grateful for being able to come and tell you what we're doing. But particularly today, I want to thank you and thank the foundation for the lovely tea that they gave us yesterday. It was truly magnificent. And at that tea, Larry Anderson reported all the good things that are happening with the hospital, and Toby told us about other fundraising opportunities that are occurring. During the tea, the lady sitting next to me leaned over and she said, "I'm really proud to be an auxilian at the hospital." A couple of years ago, you wouldn't have heard a whole lot of people saying that. A lot of people weren't proud of the hospital, but now we are. And particularly our new lobby and everything there. And in that same vein, we're trying to upgrade our greeter department, because we think it's very important that everybody that comes into the hospital is greeted and given some information on where they might go to solve whatever problem it is they have. It's been a struggle, but we're working on it. Also, we're trying to get a little more professional in our appearance. We have picked out new uniforms that we're going to start with the greeters and reception. More in keeping with the hospital colors. We won't be pink ladies anymore, thank heavens. We have picked out teal green tops and khaki colored pants, and so I think we'll really look better, I hope. I don't have a whole lot of other things to say about the other departments. We're all moving along. We have people working all over the hospital all the time. And we appreciate the opportunity to do that. Anybody have any questions?
Who won the trip to Hawaii?
One of our auxilians. She works in the gift shop, and she and a friend are going, and that's April 5th. So that would be exciting. And she still wants to go after all the cruise stuff now.
I have a request for hope, and that is, as we sunset the uniforms, not the ladies, just the uniforms, is there any chance that we could do something about the candy stripers?
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit farther down the line.
But you have that on your radar screen?
But yes, we do have that on our radar screen.
Thank you.
We want to have them more in keeping with what we're wearing, but you know, it takes a while. Nothing moves swiftly with little ladies.
Thank you for moving into the 21st century.
When we came back from the meeting where we picked out what our uniforms were going to be, I had a couple people say, "Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it." But for everybody who said that, I had 2 or 3 people say, "When can our department get the new uniform?" So I think it's going to be a home run.
Oh, good. Thank you, Hope. And we'll move on, and we'll hear from the Chief Financial Officer, Alex Yu.
Good afternoon. I just want to go over some of the points that our CEO, Larry Anderson, spoke of earlier about our financial results for January 31. And as he stated, our net from operations was $1,003,000, approximately $741,000 ahead of budget. Our EROE, which is our excess revenue over expenses, is $1.8 million compared to a budget of $1,074,000 for a $793,000 favorable variance for the month. Year-to-date EROE, we're at 7.5 actual compared to a budget of 4.5, and we're approximately $3 million ahead of budget. Now, as you know, we started reporting EBITDA, as a new financial metric, and for the month, our EBITDA is $3.5 million compared to a budget of $3,040,000. We're $517,000 ahead of budget on an EBITDA basis for the month. Year-to-date, we're at $19,269,000 compared to a budget of $18,310,000, and we're approximately $959,000 ahead of budget. Now, one of the important things that we recognize is that all the financial institutions and Others interested are concerned with the EBITDA number because that's what's used across the financial industry. And basically, if you think of it in terms of what the institution generates in the form of free cash, they like to look at EBITDA because we do take into account non-cash expense items such as depreciation and amortization, which affects your earnings, but expenses that we record for which we don't expend cash on. Excuse me. And also, there are institutions out there that do pay taxes, which we don't as a district entity. So they like to take the taxes out to show what the results from the operations are. So that's kind of the background behind why we're reporting EBITDA. Excuse me. So looking at our expenses, we're $1.8 million favorable to budget for the month. We came in at $26,089,000 compared to a budget of $27,918. The single factor that caused the single greatest unfavorable variance that I want to talk about is for the registry line item. Now, as you know, registry composes of primarily nurses that we get from outside agencies to complement our own nursing staff. Due to the increased volume that we've been seeing this fiscal year, our internal nursing staff has been unable to accommodate the increase in volume through extra shifts worked and overtime incurred. So that's why you see this number for the month at $647,000 compared to a budget of $183,000. We do realize that we are $2 million over budget on a year-to-date basis for registry, but once again, I want to point out, this is all due to the increased volume we have. So what we've done to mitigate this is that the Position Control Committee did approve and we did hire a nurse recruiter. Her job is going to be focused entirely on recruiting the nursing staff for our institution. And also we've increased the number of open positions for nursing. And as a matter of fact, this week I believe we had 13, come through for new employee orientation. So we are increasing our nursing staff, and as these 13 nurses go through their orientation and get assimilated out to the units to work, this number will decrease in the coming months.
Remind everyone, especially the public, that we adhere to a ratio of 1 to 5 on some of the units, while on other units, it's even 2 to 1 or 1-on-1. And we're very, very meticulous, I might say, in adhering to those ratios so that we do give safe, quality care.
Absolutely. And this is something that we discuss almost on a bi-weekly basis when we have the department directors come to what we call our productivity meetings to talk about unfavorable variances in their actual hours per unit of service compared to what they're budgeted. And more often than not, we see a lot of nursing units who are unfavorable, but then it's for exact reasons that you're talking about, that we have nurse staffing ratios that decrease as far as the ratio down to, as you noted, 1 to 1 on these critical patients. In addition to that, we also utilize a significant number of ACTs to serve as sitters. So that also adds to our unfavorable variance in the nursing units. So just to let you know, we do monitor our productivity on a daily basis, and we also monitor it on a bi-weekly basis as well.
But I really feel, from the board standpoint, that it's critical that the community understands why we are spending this much money in this area. And it's for safe, quality care.
Absolutely. And like I said, we are ramping up the hiring of nurses, and as more of these nurses come online, that expense will decrease.
Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. So I'm open to any comments, questions, or concerns that you may have.
Director Barton?
You, I'm a little confused here with the receivables. It seems like back in September you were telling us you had problems with seasonal variances, employees taking vacations and stuff like that. And last month you told us we had slow pay receivables, and in this month you give us the same reasons that you gave us back in September. Now, what is the deal with the receivables?
When we looked at our receivables, one thing you'll notice is that in September, our DNFB increased significantly. And for those of you who might understand what DNFB means, that stands for discharged, not final billed. So basically, what that means is when a patient is discharged, their charts have to be coded, and it has to go through that coding process in order for an account to be billed. Now, as you'll note, in September, our DNFB increased from $37 million in August to $46 million in September. When we have an increase like that, one of the things that occurs is that bills will not be dropped and be sent out. Subsequent to that, we see that the DNFB has decreased to 35 million, then to 27, 24, and 19. So the DNFB has consistently been decreasing. One of the things that we found out is that our business office staff was unable to keep up with the increase in the volume related to the increases in patient census. So when we determined that it was a productivity issue, we added in the last 3 weeks 8 additional temporary employees in the business office to accommodate these increased volumes, to get these bills dropped and sent out. And we're continuing to analyze the AR and to assess the collectability of it. One thing that gives us comfort is that we had a significant growth in accounts receivable, but the majority of the increase, about 75 to 80%, is in the less than 120-day category, which are your current receivables that have the highest likelihood of collecting. We understand that our net AR days as of January, is 58.7 and 58.7. And this number needs to be more in the neighborhood of 45. So through the we have increased billing efforts going on right now. We've got added additional employees to work the accounts, and what I mean by working the accounts is to call the insurance companies, find out what is causing the delay, and if there's any documentation issue or if there's anything they're missing that is preventing them from making payment, to get those issues resolved. So we are confident that we're going to be collecting these in the coming months, and we're reviewing the situation. And one of the things that we did do that I reported out to the FOMP committee is that we have a consulting engagement agreement with our external auditors, Moss Adams, and then they are on site in the business office doing a business office review. The young lady who is doing the business office review for Moss Adams was previously an interim business office director at Tri-City, so she's familiar with the system, and I expect a report from her shortly with respect to the areas we need to focus on to facilitate this process.
I'd like to comment on this as well. I think Director Horton raises a good point. It's a significant observation. It's a multifaceted issue, and a couple of the significant things that have happened. We were notified recently by the state of California that Medi-Cal is going to drag their feet on reimbursing us. They've delayed 2 and 3 weeks in their cycle, so that allows also the AR to build. But even more significantly than that, Medicare has taken back and notified us of this, about $4 million in what they call RAC reviews, recovery audit reviews. Those go out to a private firm. They did this a couple of years ago, and they focused on rehab cases. This time they're not focusing on rehab, they're focusing on 1, 2, and 3-day stays. I've seen them focus on 1-day stays before. I've never actually seen them be this aggressive. That is, taking back 1, 2, and 3-day stays. I mean, we don't admit people. Our doctors don't admit people to the hospital for 3 days that aren't medically necessary to be here. So now that we expect most, if not all, of that $4 million to come back to us after the private reviews. But in the meantime, that constitutes additional AR billed for us. So a lot of this is aggressiveness on the part of both the state and federal governments in delaying payment for various reasons. And then in addition to that, there was a modification in our software that's used in the billing and coding department. We reported that to you before. And that got us behind in the September-October timeframe, and we've never really caught up. So we're aggressively attacking this issue now. We'll keep watching it on a day-to-day basis and knock that number down. We believe most of the accounts receivable that we're listing here are collected.
I'd like to add something, excuse me. At Scottsdale, a seminar on, it was on compliance for board members and compliance officers as well. We had a speaker who addressed the RAC, and we had the same speaker address accounts receivable. And they stated that hospitals need to be compliant with their accounts receivable. And they need to get their accounts receivables down to where, to a good point, like you said, 45 days, or otherwise they're going to be scrutinized by the, I don't know who will scrutinize. Do you know who will scrutinize them? I can't remember off my top of my head, Dan. But anyway, they're going to be scrutinized by the compliance people who don't